Hello, my name is Anne-Marie Cannon, and I'm the host of Armchair Historians. What's your favorite history? Each episode begins with this one question. Our guests come from all walks of life. YouTube celebrities, comedians, historians, even neighbors from the small mountain community that I live in. They're people who love history and get really excited about a particular time, place, or person from our distant or not so distant past. The jumping off point is the place where they became curious, then entered the rabbit hole into discovery. Fueled by an unrelenting need to know more, we look at history through the filter of other people's eyes. Armchair Historians is a Belgian Rabbit production. Stay up to date with us through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Wherever you listen to your podcast, that is where you'll find us. Armchair Historians is an independent, commercial-free podcast.
Welcome back to Not Again, the podcast that brings college-level analysis to preschool-level content. I'm one of your hosts, Rebecca.
I'm your other host, Alan.
And today we're ruining My Neighbor Totoro. So if you like that movie, I still want the download. So could you just skip to the end, like the last 30 seconds, and then it'll just be like me talking about our social media?
Yeah. We also, at least on some level, like this movie, right?
I mean, I'm a huge Miyazaki fan, so if you think I'm about to say that all Miyazaki movies are bad, I'm certainly not. Yeah, your favorite is?
I'd say Princess Mononoke.
And then you also like Castle in the Sky, right?
Yeah, Castle in the Sky.
I love those, by the way. My favorite is Howl's Moving Castle, and my second favorite is Spirited Away. Yep. But I love all of those. You
can do a fun game with Castle in the Sky.
You
can take notice anytime anybody almost falls to their death.
Yes.
It happens so often.
And you can take notice of this by having a libation.
Having a grown-up beverage.
My Neighbor Totoro is a movie that Warren has watched a lot because that's what this show is about. That's what this podcast is about. We analyze movies that we've seen a lot thanks to Warren. He calls it Bus, as I recall, or he used to. Now he has other bus shows that he's moved on to. And so thankfully we haven't seen this movie in a while. But he likes the cat bus bit and the actual bus bit. He loves buses. I never was a huge fan of Totoro to begin with. I think that people love how cute he is and they love the cat bus. And as you'll find out, I find this movie terrifying. It is basically a horror movie to me. And those of you who didn't like our kind of improvisational nature of the past few episodes, because I didn't have a lot of notes, guess what? I have notes. I went through and I took that for the team and I watched Totoro again, and I took notes. So we're going to go on a little more organized thing. This is a movie, and with movies, we tend to do 2 episodes, like we did with Finding Nemo and The Secret Life of Pets 2. Those are great episodes, by the way. Go listen to those. So, without further ado, let's jump into it.
All right.
And the very first thing we're jumping into is I skipped the annoying song at the beginning because if I hear, "Hey, let's go," one more time, I'm probably going to go bonkers. So I just skipped that. And then I very quickly wrote involving children in crime because I love the beginning when he has his daughters in the back of his truck and they're like watching out for police. And she's like, "Oh, I thought that was a policeman. Phew." And she's like, "Hey," it's like just involve those children in crime.
Oh, yeah.
As we're about to talk about, for the most part, this movie has a positive portrayal of single parenting and single parenting from like a single father, which is good. For the most part, we'll get to it. But probably involving your children in crime, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing that was illegal. Probably no seatbelts.
Yeah, probably. You said they were in the back of the truck.
Yeah. So
they probably weren't supposed to be there.
I was reminded of Brock from Pokemon eating his, quote, donuts, which were just onigiri, when she said, like, "Do you want some caramel?" Because I'm pretty sure she was offering him something completely different.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to that part in Japanese. It's going to come up that I know a little Japanese. I wanted to take as many foreign languages in college as possible because I love languages, and I did not realize that there was a stigma attached to white people who try to learn Japanese. So I was just like, I was interested in learning one of the Asian languages, I would say, like not Chinese. Chinese isn't a language, but Mandarin or Japanese. And I chose against Mandarin because I know that that's intonational. And I didn't want to accidentally insult anybody. So I chose Japanese, and I'm glad I did. It's a beautiful language. And that'll come up later. So I did not watch this part in Japanese, though. So I don't know what she offered him, but I'm guessing it wasn't
just
caramel.
Something, yeah.
Okay. Next thing I wrote is cannot get over Kanta's butt patch. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
That kid's shorts?
Yeah.
I just I keep staring, and I don't want to stare at this cartoon child's butt, but why does it have that weird different colored bit on his butt?
It's a pad. I guess it's like the suede elbows on your professor's jacket,
right?
Or
same
whatever.
Thing. He has a suede butt. Anyway, let's talk about the magical acorns, because here's something I never thought about. You remember when they go into the house for the first time and there are acorns all over? And
yeah.
Well, I thought that was some indication that there's some spirit in the house, but the only thing they encounter in the house is those little soot balls.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's just never resolved. But later Totoro gives them seeds.
Yeah.
And yet Totoro isn't in their house. So I thought about it a bit, and I Googled it just to make sure it wasn't some lore or folktale that I didn't know about, because it's from Japanese culture. Yeah. And mostly what I saw was that the acorns are symbolic.
Okay. Well, yeah, Miyazaki movies often have a theme of some sort of reverence for nature as part of the film, and that happens in a lot of
Princess Mononoke would be probably the most extreme example of that, I feel. But even Castle in the Sky.
And
so so here's what I'll say as an English teacher. I recently learned a wonderful definition to help differentiate symbols and metaphor. Basically, if something exists in the literal space of the story, but also has a greater figurative meaning, something it represents a greater idea or concept, it's a symbol. But if something only exists in the figurative space, for instance, you call a girl a mouse, but she is not literally a mouse, then it is a metaphor. You're using the metaphor as a comparison to say that she's quiet or shy. So the acorns are symbolic. They symbolize youth, right? Because children are little seeds that we plant, and not literally. Don't put your children in the soil, but we nurture them and they grow big and strong. And they're also kind of the whimsy of the movie, and the fact that the house is spiritual, right?
Yeah.
So fair enough. Magical acorns. Good thing these two young children are delighted to be living in a haunted, crumbling house. Oh, I wrote, that was my note. I'm sorry. I already forgot what I wrote, and I think I wrote this yesterday. So on the one hand, yay, bravery.
Yeah.
Right? We see two little girls who are unafraid.
Mm-hmm. It's an adventure for them to be in this new place.
On the other hand, they're shaking the, what do you call that? The support outside of the house? The rafters? Not the
egress? I don't know.
Yeah, they're shaking one of these beams, we'll say, and it's literally crumbling around them, and they're like, yay, it's falling apart. And then they discover their house is haunted, and they're like, yay, it's haunted. What would happen if
I think the dad says, I've always wanted to live in a haunted house.
That's an exact quote, I think. Yeah, and it's just I like that he's using his positivity to keep his daughters from getting scared, but what if they just were? Hey girls, we're moving into this new house. It's falling apart and haunted, and just crying forever.
I don't want to live there. Yeah.
So it's a good thing that they are, spunky young girls who don't care and in fact enjoy that it's falling apart and haunted. This is a personal hang up for me. Totally my opinion. Miyazaki art is amazing. 99% of the time, it's spectacular. Howl's room in Howl's Moving Castle, I wish I had a print of that, because it's beautiful. But the way that he draws small children terrifies me. May is a little gremlin. She scares me. I don't know. Does she scare you?
She's definitely of a style. I think I
don't. And here's the thing. I then had to confront the fact that I might be sexist, because it doesn't bother me with Markle from Howl's Moving Castle, and he's drawn in the same style.
Yeah, but I could see. But he also looks kind of weird if you think about it.
Yes, it's a very straight, and he does that style with the baby in Spirited Away, but that baby's supposed to be terrifying.
Yeah, baby is supposed to be a little scary.
Right? I feel like it's supposed to be. So I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like the character of May to begin with, but it doesn't help that she looks like a gremlin. So that's that. I usually love his art style, though. So gorgeous.
And anytime he draws food, it looks so delicious.
The bacon and eggs in Howl's Moving Castle. It's just bacon and eggs, but I want to eat it every time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that, it's very amazing art style, and yeah.
Yeah, you can hear the reverence in our tone, because for the most part we love his movies. But anyway, we move on to way number one, that this is a horror movie. Small children being lured up into a dark attic by ghosts.
Yeah, that's usually steps 1 and 2 in a horror flick. Yeah.
I think that My Neighbor Totoro is essentially The Grudge. You know?
Yeah, I can see it.
I think I haven't seen The Grudge. I cannot watch horror movies. I will be scared forever. But I'm pretty sure there's a scene where somebody pokes their head up into an attic in the American version of The Grudge and gets messed up by a ghost. No, so these two little girls are looking up a dark stairway. There's no light. So it literally descends into black. Like you can see nothing. And then just a single acorn falls down the stairs towards them, and they're like, ooh, acorn, let's go up and see. And if this were any other movie, they would die.
They would die. Yeah.
Immediately. And the dad would be like, I finished moving in, girls. So anyway, sorry to take it to a dark place, but it is a horror movie. We'll get back to that. All right. Maybe I'll try to talk slower again. It won't work. I wrote Totoro is basically The Grudge. I will give them this. Mei's movements and mannerisms are really accurate. She is 4 years old.
Yep.
And the way that she runs around and kind of waddles down the stairs and kind of like picks her steps carefully. I think that the scene when Granny first appears and she like tries to run away from Granny but ends up just running in a circle and running into her again.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this in other movies that they had a really hard time with young characters being accurate to their age they're supposed to be. In Finding Nemo, especially, we talked a lot about how Darla, is that her name? Darla was not 8 years old in that movie, even though she was supposed to be. You're absolutely right. Mei is a 4-year-old.
Yes, and I think Markle as well.
Yeah,
I would say that Patsu and Shita from Castle in the Sky are a little old for their age.
Yeah, they're aged up a little. I'd say,
which is good. Because of the really creepy stuff that happens with the dudes on the ship with Shita. What is
Shita, yeah.
So, but for the most part, he does well with that. So I wanted to give him props for that. I'm saying this like this is one dude making every movie and scripting it, and he takes credit for it all. Yeah. I'm not saying he takes credit. I give him credit for it all. He's a magician. He's an artist. But anyway, let's talk about this. Granny, I'm just going to call her Granny, calls the soot sprites, and she's like, you've got soot sprites in your house. And they're like, what? But their dad literally said they had soot gremlins like 5 minutes prior to that. They were like, Dad, there's something in this house. And he went, it's probably just some soot gremlins. And they were like, oh, okay. Like the ones in my storybook? And he was like, yeah. And then even the dad, when Granny's like, yo, soot sprites, he's like, what are they? It's like, what is this lost? I should have watched the whole thing in Japanese.
It might have been a bad translation.
It might have been a bad translation. Yeah. But like they seem completely unaware of this, even though they were just, like he said gremlin, not sprite, but same thing, right?
Yeah. You see, it seemed like he was already there.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be shocked to hear somebody else say it.
There's a couple cultural differences that any Japanese movie being translated into English has to kind of contend with, which is to start with the fact that when beginning to eat, people in Japan say itadakimasu, and when they are finished eating, they say gochisousama, which is like part of the ritual. And it's basically, it's not the same thing. It's similar to saying grace. It's just part of the meal.
Yeah.
But like they have to figure out how they're going to translate that in English, because we tend not to just say thank you for the meal or let's eat before we eat. So they have to do that. The other one is, in Japan, they respect their elders as opposed to using them as comedic props in every single American film and TV show ever. And so when you call somebody grandma or grandpa or even auntie or uncle in Japan, it is a term of respect.
Yes.
In this, the dad had to give the girls permission to call her granny, which I don't think they probably would have needed.
Didn't need to do in the, yeah.
Yeah, because, if you say to somebody in America, like, hey, grandma, can I help you? She'd smack you, Yeah. But, like, in Japan, that's just what they would say. Like, you're an older woman. I respect you. You are my grandma. It's like a term of endearment. So she becomes granny, and they did it well enough. I heard somewhere that Miyazaki refused to let Disney do English dubs of his films unless they agreed to stay as true as possible to the original script. So they did a good job of that. Yeah, then we get Kanta with his butt patch back to deliver a basket of donuts. What they call them? It's mochi. For sure it's mochi. But they call them cakes, I think.
Yeah.
I will always remember being so confused as a youth, looking at Brock holding onigiri, which is a rice ball with seaweed, and going, yummy donut. I forever looked for donuts that looked like that. Like it took me so long to realize. And I think it's Pokemon Abridged that made the joke of him like holding an onigiri and going like, I can't wait to eat this hamburger. So yeah, no.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, why do you need to translate it? You could just say like, "This is a rice cake," or "This is onigiri," or whatever.
They could still call it onigiri, and kids could just look it up, or they could call it a rice ball, which is
pretty
what
much,
it is.
yeah.
You know? But mochi is a little harder to translate. But just call it mochi.
Yeah.
Who cares? So he brings over some mochi.
People are aware that people eat other foods in other places that like you may not have heard of before.
In Harry Potter, they translated a lot of the Britishisms, but they like unnecessarily translated pavement to sidewalk. Like,
yeah, like we wouldn't
figure it out.
We wouldn't figure out pavement.
And they also had to change it to the Sorcerer's Stone, even though that's not a thing, because they were worried that American audiences would be like, philosophy, I hate this, and put it down. I don't know what it was, but
yeah, I think that was it. It's like Philosopher's Stone. That's too
that's too academic.
That's gonna just alienate American children.
Yeah, but we're academia nuts. Shirt coming soon. Plug, plug, plug. So anyway. Kanta comes over with the basket of mochi that they call cake, and then I wrote a budding age-appropriate romance ? And so he yells at her that her house is haunted, and then runs away. Okay, here we are. We're doing all right. We're about 15 minutes in. By the way, this is episode 18.
Oh.
So happy Chai Day.
Yeah, lucky number.
Yeah, in Jewish tradition, the number 18, which is Chai, means life. So it's kind of a lucky number of that whole religion. And I love the number 18. I've always liked it. So yeah, Mazel Tov.
Yeah, happy number 18.
Yep. Anyway, so the bath scene. Let's move from talking about lucky numbers to this.
Okay.
Another Japanese tradition that I will not in any way imply is wrong, because cultural differences are fine, is bathing together. So there's something called Onsen, which is like a hot spring. And basically the way that sensei means teacher, by the way. I think it kind of got associated with like karate masters by like American media.
By movies, but it just means teacher.
It means teacher. Sensei told me in college that the mindset is like, women bathe with women and men bathe with men. And yes, this is gender normative, by the way. I totally understand that. But she did say basically the thought being, we all have the same parts. Why would we be ashamed to see them? We see them on ourselves. Yeah. And again, that's gender normative. She didn't mean it that way. It's
a long-standing thing.
It's a long-standing thing. And I'm sure that actually probably is an issue that, I don't want to get into... it might be a point of modern contention in Japan. I'm a trans ally, but I also don't want to speak for trans people and trans issues because I'm not an expert on that. And so I don't want to appropriate or misappropriate or anything like that. But I'm sure it becomes an issue. That being said, men bathe with men. It's also common to see a father bathing with his son for the same reason. It's like we have the same parts, and you can see that happening in Dragon Ball Z, for instance. And they're also a little bit less ashamed of child nudity in general. A lot of manga and anime will just show full frontal of children. But I was all that being said, I was still really surprised to see a grown man bathing with his daughters. Now, I know that the younger one is 4 and probably can't bathe on her own. Yeah. But the older one could take care of her, I feel like. Yeah. I was really surprised by that. I'd love for somebody from Japan to weigh in on that and tell me if that's also a usual thing. If there's like a certain age where fathers stop bathing with their daughters, would a mother bathe with her son? Because I thought it was strictly like if you are of the female persuasion, then you bathe with other female.
One thing we haven't talked about so far about this movie is that he's not technically a single father. Their mother is in the hospital.
Oh, right. We're gonna get to that.
And so it might just be like, well, normally the mother would bathe with the 4-year-old, but it's just like I have to do it.
Right. That was my thinking.
I'm the only adult here.
That was my thinking. It still weirds out my American brain. Yeah. But if it's normal, like for the culture, that's fine. However, I still 0% approve of using the 4-year-old's head to censor her father's junk. Yeah. I hate that scene. I call this my whale scene. I don't know if it's yours as well. Yeah. If you'd like to know about the whale scene, please listen to our Finding Nemo episodes. I think that's 8 and 9. Okay. I see it all the time, and I always look over right when May's head is like censoring her father.
There's no camera because it's an animated movie, but like it's lined up.
Why did you draw it that way then?
So it's lined up so that you can't see Dad's junk because she's in the way.
Right. And like, just don't choose to draw that. Because there's no camera, there's no need. It's not like the cartoon was like showing off too much and you're like, oh boy, better get his daughter in here to cover up. No, like, just don't draw a scene where a little girl's head is used to censor like an oak leaf on Adam's lower parts. You know, like, what are you doing? I hated that. So in conclusion, in Japan, they have different cultural approaches to bathing and nudity and censorship and whatever. And let's face it, America's pretty puritanical still.
Yeah.
I am not trying to be against that in any way. I just think that was a little tasteless to use May as a censoring block. I also, Satsuki, you see her rear end. I'm not particularly into that, but as I said, in Japan, they're a little less, squicked out about it. And let's face it, this is not an Inside Out thing. I don't know did you ever see Inside Out?
I did, but it's been a while.
There's a scene where the little girl is running naked through the house, maybe with a diaper on her head or something, and she starts literally dancing around like naked, and it's just front and center, and I just felt very uncomfortable.
It's like, I don't want to see this.
Please change the scene. Like, this is not my child, so I feel like I'm wrong for looking at this.
Yeah, I mean, it's true to life. Children do get out of the bath or whatever and just run around naked. And
For sure.
You try and grab them, but
Warren makes a game out of it too, but he's our son, so it's fine. I've seen Inside Out. I don't like it. Don't at me. Or you can, whatever, go for it. But I will tell you, you're not going to convince me to like that movie. It's time to meet Mom. She has plot convenience disease. Mm-hmm. It makes her very sick and frail with generic symptoms that keep her in the hospital. But we don't know what she has. Not that they're required to tell us.
No, not really. And the movie is a little bit, it's a little bit from the kid's perspective. And I know it's not fully that way, but it would make sense that they wouldn't know or understand what was going on with her.
All right, fair enough.
So I think that was probably on purpose, that they kept it vague because it was sort of like, we are looking at this world through the eyes of children who probably just wouldn't understand what she actually has.
Fine, defend the movie.
All right.
No, that's fine. That's a good point for sure. So she's sick, and they go to the hospital to visit her, and I kind of thought, like, I feel bad for Dad because he's got, he can't really have, I'm trying to keep it PG, he can't have alone time with his wife because he's got to bring the girls. Of course they want to see their mom. I mean, obviously I just feel bad for them that she's in the hospital, right? Spoiler alert, at the end, in the end credit scene, she's back home with them, so she doesn't die or anything, but we'll get back to that. The kids are certainly afraid she will. You know what it's time for, honey?
A bad parenting alert?
A bad parenting alert. So Satsuki's at school, and Dad, I'm just going to call him Dad. I don't know. Dad is home with May, and he just lets his 4-year-old wander off into the wilderness. Mm-hmm. He's like, I got work to do, kid. Go on. And she immediately gets lost.
Yeah. So he works full time. Mom's in the hospital. His solution to this is sometimes they spend time with Granny, and other times they're just completely unsupervised.
For sure. And so she wanders off, and it isn't until Satsuki gets home and asks where she is that he even like considers that he does not know. Like, he's like, I don't know. She's been running around all day, and so Satsuki's like, yeah, but where is she? And he's like, oh, did I need to know that? I put a bell on her, but it must have fallen off. No, he didn't even do that. So we see May's adventures, and we see little Totoro, which is the one that's like the size of a large rabbit or whatever. Yep. And at least that one's cute.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that one. And it turns invisible, and it's got funny little music, and she starts following it around. But then we meet big Totoro. Mm-hmm. Totoro is terrifying. I am so scared of this creature. I don't like, he's supposed to be all about childhood whimsy, but he has this huge mouth, and he doesn't talk. He just kind of grumbles, and he's just dwarfs this little child. Like, he surrounds her with his bulk.
It might be a different sort of thing, but we kind of associate that like large toothy grin with sinister intentions.
Yes.
As like the Joker or something.
And the Cheshire Cat.
And
like,
yeah. And
not that the Cheshire Cat's sinister, but still, the Cheshire Cat isn't supposed to be like, oh, how cute.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a little bit like like we've coded that as that kind of smile is creepy
for sure,
and that might not be the same everywhere.
And
but
the cat bus smiles that way too,
yeah.
with its headlight eyes. And I just go like, these kids are already dead, and this is like their death row dream or whatever. So She Meets Totoro, played by the amazing Frank Welker. Through the magic of editing, you don't know this, but I did look it up, and it's Mr. Kusakabe. So Kusakabe-san is the name of the dad. Radar just groaned so sadly. He's so disappointed with me. Anyway, Totoro is played by Frank Welker. And Frank Welker is, like D. Bradley Baker, one of those monster actors. I used to say, I think this is honestly true. If Nickelodeon needs a voice actor to play a monster or an animal, they get D. Bradley Baker. And if Disney needs that, they get Frank Welker. I believe Frank Welker plays the horse in Mulan cartoon. Like they just get these are the actors.
The Rolodex is just one name.
Yes, exactly. But like they seem to split, like Disney has theirs and Nickelodeon has theirs.
Sure.
D. Bradley Baker plays Appa and Momo in Avatar: The Last Airbender, among other things. Like you'll definitely hear his voice in SpongeBob, and I'm so fascinated by his skills. And like if you want to see that, you can watch, I hope it's still on Netflix. It's called I Know That Voice.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a great thing. Joe DiMaggio's the baseball player, right?
Yeah.
So John DiMaggio, who plays Bender from I was supposed to say Fantasia.
From
Futurama. He put together this documentary about voice acting, which I think you should watch because these people are behind the scenes all the time, right? And they deserve recognition for doing this amazing job. So D. Bradley Baker's on there and he shows like some examples of his awesome voice powers. But Frank Welker plays Totoro. He does a great job. Totoro is so scary. These kids are going to die. That's all I think all the time. When I first saw this movie, I think I had to ask the friend who was showing it to me, like, is this bad? Is this scary movie or like good movie? So anyway, Mai Meets Totoro, falls asleep on him, cut to black. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever happens. Then we have the father having no idea where his tiny daughter is or what fantastical creatures she's running around with. Satsuki's the one who finds her. I do feel for Mai when her sister and dad start laughing at her because she says that she saw a Totoro and then she's running around trying to find him, but she keeps ending up in the same spot and they start laughing at her because I'm the youngest of three children. And little me, my mother will tell you stories, but don't talk to her. Why are you calling my mother? Don't do that. I was interesting. People would call me cute and I would cross my arms and scowl and go, I'm not cute. And I have memories of this. I think I just felt like people were laughing at me. I was very anti-adults laughing at me. And my mom tried to explain that they were doing it because they liked me. And I was like not ready to accept that they were laughing with me and not at me. And this led to my mother's thing. This is apparently a therapy session for me now, but in first grade, we were doing an assembly where we had to sing Splish Splash. I was taking a bath and all the little kids were supposed to wear shower caps for the performance. And I refused to put mine on because I didn't want to look ridiculous. And so I stood there crossing my arms and scowling throughout the whole song while every other kid was singing and wearing a shower cap. And yes, I'm aware now that I looked more ridiculous not participating, okay? First graders do not have that kind of logic. Anyway, I do feel for Mai in this one scene. Yeah. I don't later. I think she's kind of an obnoxious child, but I'm sorry for not being more tolerant of children. Oh my God. I wrote, Satsuki makes Kanta experience the beginnings of puberty. It's true. He like starts staring at her before school and then during school, and he gets bopped on the head by his teacher who has like this knowing look on her face because he's staring at Satsuki and she bops him with like a notebook and goes back to work. But she's like smiling a little bit. She's like, this kid's going through the beginnings of puberty.
This guy is discovering himself a little bit.
So that's embarrassing. But yeah, so Kanta's gone through that. So Kanta is an interesting character. He's got a butt patch and he is going through some things. And I hope that he gets help discovering himself or whatever. But the next...
You hope he has an easy time of puberty. Right. We hope that for everybody.
The next plot point is that he loans his umbrella to Satsuki and Mai because it's raining really hard. And they come back to his house to return it later. And they're like, Kanta loaned us this. We hope it wasn't too much trouble for him. I think I have an exact quote here. Hold on. No, I don't have the full quote, but I'm pretty sure his mom says, oh, don't worry about it. Kanta's such a dirty child. He needed a wash anyway.
Yeah. It's kind of a thing where like, you're not supposed to brag on your kids too much. It's a little bit of a
cultural thing.
Thing. You know, here we would say, "Oh, my kid is so smart," or "They're an honor student. I'm going to put a bumper sticker on my car."
Right.
And
in Japan, they have a term for it, like a child they have a term for a child who's too not devoted, but like braggy about their parent, and they have a term for a parent who's too braggy about their child. And it translates. I have to say, it translates to parent idiot or child idiot, basically.
Okay.
Like that's a direct translation. They're not calling them idiots. They're calling them like doting parents, basically.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to be humble.
Yeah. So if your kid does a nice thing, like lend his umbrella, you just
have to be like, oh yeah, but he could use a watch.
Oh yeah, he needed that anyway.
Right.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be like, oh, that's very nice of him. You know, that's too braggy.
But I wanted content to just be like, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks for calling me smelly in front of this girl I like.
Yeah, well, he ran and hid too because the beginnings of puberty.
Yeah.
As soon as he saw them coming. So we have reached our time, and I think that I'm very excited for next week because we have not one, but 2 bad grannying alerts coming up. We don't have a lot of bullet points left, but something tells me we're going to
have lots to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to have lots to talk about. So if you hated us for ruining Totoro for you, let us know. We're at Not Again Pod on Twitter. I am at Bex Goose, BEXGOOS. I do daily podcast reviews as the Potato Lady podcast reviewer. We also have a Ko-fi and Patreon. We are Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/notagain. We are at Patreon at patreon.com/potato lady. You can become an official potato and get all of our episodes a full 24 hours early. And there's lots of other benefits too. Lastly, I have done some guest spots. I have been on Assume the Juxtaposition, Set Lusting Bruce. I did a 2-minute spot on Deconstructing Damsels. And I did a breakdown of Resident Evil 4 in talking to women about video games. So please check out my guest spots. I think that would be really fun. And please reach out to us if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or suggestions for movies to overanalyze. And with that being said, we will get at you next time with the conclusion of My Neighbor Totoro. Until then, thank you for helping us to maintain our marbles for one more week. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Alan.
Bye, friends.
Bye.